Hello and welcome to a new full ship tour. This time we're taking a look at the Ambience of Ambassador Cruise Line, and as always we are starting with a few general facts. The ship has a gross tonnage of 70,285, is 245 meters long, 32.25 meters wide, and can take up to 1,400 guests. She was built in 1991 as a Regal Princess for a company called Astrama, but the ship was delivered to Princess Cruises. Later on it was planned to move the ship to Arosa Cruises, but instead later on she moved to P&O Australia with the new name Pacific Dawn. 2019 it was planned that the ship will move to Cruise and Maritime Voyages from the year 2021 under the name Amy Johnson, but due to COVID, unfortunately Cruise and Maritime went bankrupt, so the ship was instead sold to a company that wanted to rename her Satoshi and used her as a private island on which you can only pay in a Bitcoin. A concept that sounded a bit sketchy, and it also failed pretty immediately. Even before the ship arrived there were some problems with insurances, and the ship was instead sold to a scrapping company. But also this sale was somehow not correct, so on the way to India to the scrapyard, the new founded company Ambassador Cruise Line stepped in and bought the ship and saved her from being scrapped. By the way, it's the same owner that used to own Cruise and Maritime Voyages. We are starting our ship tour on deck 2. There we have the Green Sea Spa and Gym area, which unfortunately I cannot show to you as it was still closed. I'm always making my ship tours very early in the morning so that there are no people visible and recognizable, because otherwise I had to blur them, which is never looking nice in the video. So instead I'm making my tours very early in the morning. So we went straight up to deck number 4, the Aloe deck, but this is only a deck with cabins and a medical center. So we continued up to deck number 5, the reception deck, and this is the first deck with public areas. It mostly holds cabins, but there is also one major public area, which is the center court, the central atrium of the ship, and there is also the Dickens bar, destination experiences, the future cruises desk, and the reception, and also a small shop. And this very beautiful place immediately shows the design of the ship, which is quite unique and not comparable to most other cruise ships. It's colorful, it's elegant, but it's not the typical design of most cruise ships, and that's why I think this is one of the most beautiful ships I've ever been on. And of course I will show you all the public areas in this video, at least all of them that I could access for this video. We are continuing now with another nice look into the center court, and now we're going to deck number 6, the main deck. Mostly for cabins, but there are also a few public areas, like the second deck of the center court, and there is the casino here on the starboard side. We can also take a short look into it. And then we keep going around the center court. Here we can see one of the main staircases again. And now on the other side of the center court we have a shopping area with a shop for jewelry, watches, and everything else that is very expensive. All of those things you can buy here in this shop. And that's almost it for this deck number 6. We have the Kapoors and the Aces and Eights. Kapoors is a multifunctional room, and Aces and Eights is a card room. But that's it for deck number 6. So we can go up one more deck to deck number 7, the Promenade deck. And here we are on the upper deck of the center court. Here we have another shop where you can buy mostly clothing and a nice selection of branded Ambassador products. There is also a small bar, which is the SW19. It is one of the smallest bars on board. Just a few seats around the center court and a small seating area by the bar itself. And now we are going further to the front of the ship, where the Palladium is located. The Palladium is the show lounge and theater on board, which has a quite nice size. So for events that almost everybody is attending, you have to have 2 seatings, but for all other events, 1 seating is enough. But as there are 2 seatings in the main restaurant, the shows in the evening will be shown twice anyway, so that everybody can see the evening show. Here we can see the big stage, and as you can see, the theater stretches over 2 decks, even comes with small tables, so also drink service is possible in the lounge. And now we are going back, and as I said, it's a promenade deck, so of course there is a promenade that we can access. It is not a walk around promenade that is going all the way around, but it has a nice and decent size on both sides of the ship, with a traditional wooden floor and some nice sunbeds. So it is one of those promenades that you can actually use. On some newer ships it is just like a nautical and technical area which you can access, but it's nothing special. But here it's also a nice area to stay, especially if the weather's not perfect or the wind is coming strongly from one side, then you can just enjoy the landscape here from the promenade. So before heading further to the back of the ship, we are now going one more time into the center court, because on the port side of the ship there is another thing that I want to show you, and this is the photo gallery. Before we reach the photo gallery, we can see the bar SW19 one more time. As you can see, it has a green and white color scheme, and that is very typical of Ambience. Every bar has its own design, so if you do not like one bar, you just go to the next one and it has a complete different design, so you for sure find at least one bar that you will like. Here you can see the photo gallery. It is very modern, so you can choose your pictures on the screen, and only those pictures that have been bought will be printed, so we have no waste of paper, which is very nice in my opinion. I do not like these old style photo galleries where all pictures are printed without knowing if you even want to buy them or not. Now we are heading to the back of the ship, and this is another feature of Ambience that I really like, and it reminds me of the old ocean liners, because here we have an inner promenade, and the bars are separated from this promenade. Okay, that means that there is no picture windows in the lounge itself, but it means nobody is just walking through the lounge. So everybody can pass by in the promenade, and the bar itself is calm and has a nice atmosphere as there's nobody walking through it. As you can see, totally different design, still with a color scheme of green, yellow and white, but very different style of seatings, different types of seating as well, like chairs, sofas, everything for every taste, something. So this is one of my favorite bars here on this ship. And if you do not like the design with the flowers and this quite colorful design, you just continue to the next bar. Just next to us is Ruffles, and Ruffles bar has a complete different design. It is based on the colors white, gray and blue, with a much cleaner appearance. So if you're more into clean design, you probably prefer the bar Ruffles. It's a bit smaller, but also very nice. And those 2 bars that I just showed you do also have special drinks. The Botanical Lounge has some gins that you can only buy there, and Ruffles bar has some special whiskeys that you can only purchase here in Ruffles bar. And now we're going to the aft of the ship, where we have Buckingham Restaurant, which is the main restaurant on board, and it has 2 seatings for dinner. And as always, I recommend taking the second seating, because first seating is always a bit rushed, because the crew needs to make sure to empty the restaurant as fast as possible so they can prepare it for the second seating. And in the second seating there is no rush, so usually the service is better, and also for me the first seating is just way too early, being at 5:45 or 6 in the evening. Here we can see the Buckingham Restaurant, and now we are continuing to the next deck, which is deck number 8, the boat deck. This is another deck with a lot of public areas, mostly in the front of the ship. So now let's head back to the front of the ship to go to the Purple Turtle pub, which is the traditional pub on board. As we were joining a multi-generational cruise, This pub was also used for a lot of family activities, as it has a big dance floor in the middle that of course can also be used for a lot of different activities. But on a regular cruise where the minimum age is 18, this is a traditional British pub. Therefore the design is a bit different, it's a bit more traditional, less colors, a bit more brown, a bit more wood, so to give it a bit more of a traditional pub atmosphere. And we are continuing on to the front. Here we have the Partnership Lounge, which is used mostly for partners of Ambassador Cruise Line. For example, on our cruise, the organization Orca was on board. They are taking care of preserving the ocean wildlife and animals. And here in the front we have the Palladium again. Now we're on the upper deck. And also here you have some nice seats, most of them with very good views of the stage. At a few seats, obviously, the view is occupied by the columns, but on most places you have a very nice view here on the second deck as well. We're leaving the Palladium on the other side because there is Bronte's library. Of course, we're gonna take a look at this library as well. It's a bit hidden, so check the deck plan before you go on board to find it if you're into reading. And then, as you can see, you have a very wide selection of nice books. As this is a British cruise ship for British guests only, they are all English books. Of course, the ship is also open for guests from other nations, as I am, for example, German, but that's quite rare that somebody who is not British is joining this ship. And if somebody is joining this ship who's not from the UK, this person probably should know that this is a British ship and speak English very well. This is also another advantage of this ship. All announcements are just made in English, not like 7 different languages, and all crew is trained to speak English, of course, as well. We are now at the aft of the ship on deck number 9. Deck number 9 is mostly just a cabin deck. There are no public areas except this small balcony here at the aft, which is open for all guests. It's not the nicest area of the ship, but it offers some fantastic views over the stern wave, and it is covered, so if the weather is not good and you still want to have some fresh air, you could go to this place. We are now going down to deck 8 again, because there is also a small balcony here at the aft of the ship, which more or less looks the same. Also not the nicest area, but it has some sunbeds, and it's also very good if the weather is not too good. And I really appreciate areas like this, because on newer and more modern ships you would have very expensive suites here, and you could not enjoy this view if you cannot afford one of the most expensive cabins on board. So here, this view is for everybody, and there's a lot of space at the aft, so this is why I prefer the old ships over the new ships, even though maybe they might have a few doubts and you maybe see the age at some parts of the ship, but for me still the atmosphere of the older ships is much nicer, and most of the time they're also built a little bit better, as the profit is not the only thing that counted when the ship was built, but also the comfort and space for the guest was more important than it is now. Here we can see a bar that could have been my favorite bar, which is the Consulate Bar, with a very nice location at the aft of the ship with a nice view, big seating area, one of 2 outdoor bars, but unfortunately during our cruise it was always closed. I've never seen it open. Even if the weather was quite nice, this bar was still not in use, so unfortunately it did not become my favorite bar, because I've just never seen it open. And we are now crossing this very long hallway again all the way to the front of the ship, because on deck 10 there's a hidden nice area, viewing area. You can clearly see it on the deck plan, but if you do not check the deck plan you will not find it, because you can only access it from the starboard hallway on deck number 10, and you need to find this small hidden door, and then you get to this nice viewing area here in the front, the nicest view of the whole ship. It's just a very small area, but as it is very hard to find and not all guests know about it, I had it for myself most of the time. And here we can see this very, very beautiful design of the ship with these very round architecture, and this has a specific reason, because this ship was designed by a famous architect. He's called Renzo Piano. He, for example, also created the Centre Pompidou in Paris and other famous buildings, and he tried to make a ship that looks a bit different from all the other ships. And that's why he chose this round design that you can clearly see here at the wheelhouse, at the bridge, and also we can see it a bit better if we're going to the nightclub later on. It's supposed to look like or resemble the head of a dolphin, and it's why this ship has this very unique design, and for me it is one of the most beautiful cruise ships that have ever been built. So I was very sad when I heard that it is supposed to be scrapped, and I was very happy when I heard that Ambassador Cruise Line saved this ship from being scrapped, as her sister ship unfortunately is already scrapped. So Ambience is now one of a kind, the only cruise ship of this type, the only cruise ship in the world that has such a nice, round and elegant design. We're now on deck number 11, the Ambassador deck, which is a deck with mostly cabins, but here at the aft we have another outdoor area that comes with 2 hot tubs. Here we can see them. As it was quite early in the morning, they were still covered, but of course during the day they are open for everybody. And you have another nice seating area here. That's also typical for all ships. They have a lot of outdoor space. Here we have an outdoor area at the aft of the ship that is inspired by this typical terrace aft of the former ocean liners. And yeah, that's already it for deck number 11. So we can continue on to deck number 12, the so-called Lido deck. And here you can see another outdoor area at the aft of the ship, and right next to it a big panoramic windows, and they belong to the Borough Market and the Saffron Restaurant. The Borough Market is the buffet restaurant on board, and this is the nicest buffet restaurant I've ever seen on a cruise ship, because mostly they look like a canteen, but here we have very nice and comfortable seats. Again, you can see this nice round structure of the ship, and the concept of this restaurant is also very nice. I will explain it to you in a second, but first let's take a look at Saffron, which is a restaurant in the restaurant, because this is an additional restaurant. It is an Indian restaurant. You have to pay if you want to eat there. It's not included, but it is very nice, and of course we will take a look at it in the next videos. So now back to the Borough Market. The Borough Market, as I said, the buffet restaurant, but it is not a typical buffet restaurant because it is like a market. You have different stands and they are all offering different types of food from different areas in the world. So this is quite nice. It's not a mirrored system, so every stand has its own food, so there is a large variety to choose from. The restaurant itself is rather small, so in the rush hour it might happen that you will not find a seat and have to wait a little bit, but still it is one of the nicest buffet restaurants I've ever seen on a cruise ship. Actually, in fact, I would say, for me personally, it is the nicest buffet restaurant I've ever seen on a cruise ship, just because it is very nicely designed. This design is exactly my personal taste. I know probably some of you might not like it, but for me this is the perfect design of a ship and it is really comfortable. Here we have an ice cream shop. Here you can buy ice cream. And now we are on the pool deck. Here we have two big pools. One is the relaxation pool, which is just a few centimeters deep. Before that we can see the pool bar, the second outdoor bar. And here we can see the relaxation pool. As I said, just a few centimeters deep, so it's actually intended to be used to cool down your feet, to lay a little bit in the water, to relax if it's hot outside. But during the multi-generational cruise, of course, it was perfect for the kids to play around, as it is quite safe for them to stay there even if they cannot swim yet. And then on the other side we have another pool. This is the proper pool, which we're gonna take a look at soon. Here we also have a slightly elevated area in the middle, which you can also use to sunbathe. And as you can see here on the left side, there's a glass roof, which is part of one of the 3 staircases. And now we're going down to this staircase just to show it to you, because I love this design. It looks like an old traditional ship using all of this wood. Very, very nice. But then if you look into the staircase, you can see the modern design again with a lot of light from the glass roof. So I love the combination of traditional ship and the modern ship that Ambience offers. We're staying on the sun deck because there is more to see. Here we can see the main pool, the proper swimming pool, which is also quite deep, so it's very good for swimming. And now we keep going to the front, and here we have another small bar, the coffee house. And as the name implies, you can get coffee, pastries and other small things here. It was still closed, so that's why it is a bit dark inside, but I still wanted to show this area to you. And we continue. I cannot go much further to the front of the ship because there's the wheelhouse, but we still have the Sea and Grass restaurant, which is behind those doors that were still closed this early in the morning. But here we can take a look at the restaurant. It is supposed to be a fine dining restaurant. Unfortunately, our cruise was fully booked, so they had to use this restaurant as another main restaurant, as an addition to the main restaurant. So the Sea and Grass itself was unfortunately closed. Here we can see the main pool again. As you can see, it is a proper swimming pool, quite nice size, especially for a ship of this age. And now we're going back to the aft of the ship, because on the starboard side there's another thing that I want to show you, and this is the alfresco grill, where you can get burgers and pizza when the restaurants are closed, so between breakfast and lunch, and after lunch until dinner. And now it is time to go up another deck. We're now heading to deck number 14, which is the sun deck. And on this deck we have the jogging track, so if you want to do some sports and you don't want to go to the gym, you can also jog a bit here on the sun deck or just go for a walk. And now we're heading to the aft of the ship. There's another public area. Here we can see the name Ambience of this beautiful ship one more time. This area is not covered, it's not windproofed, so this is a proper outdoor area. There's just this small windbreaker here, but that's basically it. We have another outer terrace at the aft of the ship, and here we have the active studio, which is more or less an empty room that can be used for different types of sports. Of course, we're gonna take a look. Here you can see the interior of the active studio. As you can see, quite empty room. For example, there's a table, tennis table, but the rest of the room is rather empty, so it can be used for different types of sports. And now we're almost at the end of our tour, but the best thing I've saved for the end of the tour, and this is my favorite area, by far favorite area. So as you have seen, it is a rather small ship, but it has a nice selection of bars and lounges, so there was never a problem to find a seat in a bar or in a lounge. But now we're gonna take a look at my favorite bar, which is the Observatory. It's not only an observatory or panoramic lounge, it is also the nightclub of the ship, and for me this is the most beautiful area of the ship and one of the most beautiful areas I've ever seen on any cruise ship before. Already here it is looking very, very nice, but if we keep going to the front we will come to this amazing area. We have a very high ceiling, we have this nice curvature, this nice round architecture of the ship, which we can see here pretty nicely. This very unique design of the ship. I almost felt like on a starship but not unlike on a cruise ship. This design is something else. It is very, very beautiful. So this is of course the place where I spend most of the time during this cruise on Ambience. So you have a big decent dance floor with big seat groups, but here in the front next to the windows you have small bays of 2 divided by the columns. So you have a lot of privacy here and can just enjoy this perfect view over the bow. So this is for me the perfect place to stay when the ship is sailing through some nice areas, or if you're on sea, it's also quite nice to just enjoy watching the sea. And here we can take another look into this stunning area of the ship, my favorite. But as I have to say, this is really one of the most beautiful ships I've ever been on. I really enjoyed being on it, and I hope you also liked it, because that's it for this video. In the next video, of course, I will show you the cabin, and in the next videos you will see more of the life on board and of course more from Norway. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video.